2016, Module 5, Part 8, we are looking at the Crosstab Query Wizard. We're also going to explore how we can change the column headings using either a field name or a caption. Let's take a look at what our final outcome should look like. So we're going to create what's called a crosstab query. So it's going to be looking at all of our invoices, and it's going to be calculating a total of our invoice amounts for each city that we are doing business in. It's going to show us the total invoice amount as well as how much is paid and how much is unpaid. So that's kind of what our crosstab query should look like when we are done. Let's go ahead and get into our Access database. We are using the Care Center database for this. And since Crosstab is one of our 4 wizards, we are going to choose Create and then choose Query Wizard. You need to memorize these 4 names. If these 4 names are asked for by name, you are to use a wizard. All of the other queries that we will work with will use query design. Crosstab is a wizard, so you're going to choose that wizard. And what you want to do as you're building this and answering the questions is you want to be watching the information that starts populating down here and giving you a visual of what you have selected. So we are going to start out by creating our crosstab using a query. We're going to use the query called Owners and Invoices. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you begin a query with another query, if you had filtered that query to, for example, only include invoices that were greater than $100, this new query would only include invoices that were greater than $100 because you used that as your starting point. So you want to make sure you know any restrictions or criteria that have been included in this query before you use it as your starting point. We're going to start out with that query and choose Next. Now it wants us to tell us, if you read these screens, they're pretty easy to work with. What are the row headings you want to use? We want cities to go in our rows. So we're going to click City and insert it. It does tell us you can select up to 3. You should not have more than 1 in this class, but you could have up to 3. We only want the 1, so we're going to say Next. Now it says what field is supposed to go across the column headings. I want to know if the invoices are paid or not. So I'm going to use Invoices Paid. Then I'm going to click on Next. Now here it says, what am I supposed to add up, count, or whatever function? I want to add up the invoice amounts. So I'm going to click on Invoice Amounts, and then I'm going to change the function to be Sum. Notice it's building it down here. It's showing that cities are going to be there, The two values for invoice paid will be there. And if you leave this box checked, then you will get a total of all invoices for that city, in addition to how many were paid and unpaid. So we do want to leave that checked. Then we're going to say next, and we need to give it a name. We're going to go ahead and leave the name, except we're going to get rid of the underscore. It does tell us that it's a crosstab, so that should tell us that we used our wizard if we go back to review. So we're ready to finish. So I'm going to go ahead and auto fit this column. I'm going to enlarge the cities just a little bit. You can see that it gives me a total. It shows me two different values for paid and unpaid, but at this point I don't really know what a -1 and a 0 means. So what we want to do is we want to make these column headings more readable. So let's take a look at how we can fix these column headings. So I'm going to go over to Design View. So I'm going to go to the Home tab, choose the View, and go to Design View. Notice here, this says these are the row headings. That heading is fine. These are our column headings. I've got to fix those. And then here you can see on this last one, this is telling us invoice amounts need to be summed. This is telling us what it's going to say at the top of the column that holds the row sum. So I want to change what it says at the top of that column. So if I want it, instead of saying total of invoice amount, I just want it to say total space invoice space amount and have it typed out. So if you want to change that column heading, you're just going to simply change the information in front of the colon. Now if you click Run, you can see that our column heading changed for that particular one. Let's go ahead and click View or Design View again. Another place that we could change this is if we went up to the property sheet. We get a caption. So if they tell you to put in a field name here, and they wanted it to read, the field name was total of invoiceamount. Oops, we need a space in front of the of. That's your field name. If I want to change what it reads in the column by using the caption, I could say sum of invoice amount. And now when I click Run, you'll see it uses that verbiage that I put in the caption. So what you change will depend on the information you are given. If they tell you you need to change it using the field name, you're going to choose it here. Total invoice amount. If they tell you to use the caption, you're going to use the information here. We're going to use the field name this time and not the caption. So if I click Run, It says total invoice amount. I'm going to save this. And I'm going to go back to our design view. And now I'm going to look at how I can change this invoice paid. So we're going to come in and we're going to do a right click and zoom. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an immediate if. So we're going to say, instead of it saying invoice paid, we're going to say IIF, open our parentheses. If invoice paid, so if that is true, if it is paid, I want it to say paid in quotes. If it's false, in quotes, I'm going to say unpaid. And that's what I'm going to use instead of leaving it as my field, the way it was. Okay? So you need to put the if statement above the column heading. Now when you click run, instead of it saying paid or -1 and 0, now it says paid and unpaid. We're going to go ahead and save that, and that concludes our crosstab query.